Good morning. The seminar today, you will have seen in the marketing materials, is covering a few key areas. We're going to go through the award categories. This presentation you can use for any awards. Obviously, we want you to go for the Northampton Chamber of Commerce Awards, and we're going to go through the categories for that, but you can actually use these notes and guidances for any award application that you go for. We're going to go through some entry criteria, understanding that, because that often puts people off, all the rules and restrictions and what you can and can't do. We're going to go through structuring your response and telling a story. That really is what award applications are all about. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to structure a good response that's going to make your application stand out. And then to back that up, ideas for wow content and evidencing your response, because it's all very well telling a story, but if you don't back it up with anything, you're just going to fall into the noise that everyone else is trying to make at the same time. So I hope that's not a surprise to anyone, and you aren't here to find out about finance or something completely random that I'm not going to talk about. So I'm going to run through, I think everyone would have seen the awards opened on Thursday, the 1st of March. The categories have been out there for a while, but the award entries are now open. So the categories that are in these Northampton Chamber awards are as follows, but actually if you look across SME Bucks, SME Northants, there's actually quite a lot of similarities. So again, you can carry some of these tips forward. Best use of technology. So what I'll do, I've summarised each category. If you go onto the website, under each award, there is some quite good bullet points as to what the judges are looking for under each category. Read those, because it can save you a lot of time. If you actually read what the judges are looking for, if you can't meet those bullet points, it's probably best to walk away at that point rather than trying to make stuff fit and getting frustrated. So best use of technology is the power of technology to transform the business. So that could be transform it for your employees, make their lives easier, save them time, make you more efficient, or it could be transform your business for your customers' benefit. So think about it from internally and externally. You might not be a technology business, but you probably use technology to make your life or your customer's life easier, and that's what this award's about. High growth business of the year. Again, it's about exceptional. Think award-winning. Hopefully we're all growing, hopefully we're all doing well, but it's being able to evidence that what you're doing is exceptional and it's performance-based. So this one's going to be a lot of stats, a lot of numbers, and showing that growth through that rather than just saying, we've had a really good year, things are going well. It's probably not going to cut it in an award environment. Employer of the year. This might be a hard one because this one's going to come from your staff. It's not very easy to stand up and say, I'm an employer of the year, without your staff being able to back that up, maybe give examples of why you're an employer of the year. The Chamber offer quite a lot of benefits as members. You've got health plans and insurance and all those sort of things. But it might be more than that that makes you an employer of the year. It could be your corporate social responsibility, your culture, and ask your staff to give examples and stories as to what makes you an employer of the year rather than just the benefits package you offer. We offer 30 days holiday. It's probably not going to win you an award, but the experience that your staff have, that's what's going to cut it. Education and business partnership. So anyone in a business where they've built their business on their relationship between them and the education sector? Perfect. These two could apply to most people. So the ones that are a bit more specific, I'm just checking if anyone in the room is relevant for those. So again, this is around how you develop that link. And again, it's probably talking to those education organisations and finding out what they get from it, rather than just your side of it, because that's going to tell a more compelling story if you've got your side of it and theirs to show how that link's benefiting not just your business, but the other side of the equation. I'd like to think we'd all be able to apply for this one, a Customer Commitment Award. If not, then what are we all doing here? Because we should all be committed to our customers, but it's being able to demonstrate that. And this award, it describes itself as a customer service excellence. So it's what do you do above and beyond the normal? What do you do that's a little bit different that makes your lives easier and your customers' lives easier? So it could be back to the investment in technology. That is a key word. And it's probably a key word for most awards, is being able to demonstrate that process. A few more categories. There's quite a few, so I'm sure everyone can find at least one or two to go for. Digital Communications Campaign of the Year. And again, we all probably do social media, we probably all got stuff out on social media, but this is about a campaign, a plan that you've had, because it needs to show objectives and outcomes. You need to show why you did it and what the outcomes were. So it might be that you had an event, it might be that you released a new service, a new product, and what was your campaign around that? What were the objectives of it and what were the outcomes? Now actually, if you look at your social media, some of us might not have set out a formal list of objectives and outcomes, but there probably were some there. So it's just thinking about the things that you've done and drawing out some key, this is why we did it, and these were the outcomes. And before you realise, actually, most of us have probably got that, we just never really formally set it out. Export Business of the Year. Anyone here business heavily involved in export? Okay, good. This is quite a key one at the moment. Obviously with Brexit and uncertainty, it's seen as an area that people are not quite sure what's going on. So to be a leader in exporting at the moment, showing how you're doing things differently, how you're maybe being flexible and promoting yourself on an international stage in light of a change in market. So it could be that you make this a really relevant piece around how you are currently tackling Brexit and the impact it's having on the export market, the strength of the pound against the euro, those sort of things. So think about relevant things in all categories, but this one especially at the moment is quite a key one to really give the judges something new to read about. And Small Business of the Year, so up to 75 full-time staff, consistent growth and financial growth. And again, anyone in the room got more than 75 members of staff in their business? Okay, so pretty much everyone else, this is a relevant category for you. And don't think, even if there's 2 of you in the business, up to 75. So there's no lower limit on these awards. And I think a lot of people think, well, there's only 3 of us in the business, it's not relevant to us, what we do. But actually, small businesses sometimes can demonstrate more effectively how they do things because they haven't got to a stage where it starts to dissipate across the team. Consistent growth, financial growth. So again, we've got a lot of numbers in there, but think about the story. You know, when did you start the business? What journey have you been on with that business? There will be ups and downs. Judges like a story because it makes it feel real. If you just say how amazing everything is, and everything's wonderful and everything's going brilliantly, sometimes they need a bit of reality in that you face challenges, but what have you done with those challenges and how has that got you where you are now? And the final category is Apprentice of the Year. Apprentices are a really great way of investing in your team, your staff, young people at quite a low cost to business. So if you're not employing apprentices, it might be something that's worth, not for the sake of the award so you can enter these, but just generally to have a think about. Okay, so that's a whistle stop of the award categories. Hopefully none of them are a surprise, but maybe just giving you a bit more of an idea as to what sort of businesses can go for each one. Let's get on to the more exciting stuff. So understanding entry criteria and using it to your advantage. I'm going to go through this because some of it is going to be sucking eggs. I apologise to you in advance, but it's amazing how many obvious things get forgotten. So under each category, there's a section called Judge is Looking For. That tells you how to plan your response. That is what the judge is going to be sat reading your application against. I think there's about 4, maybe 5 bullet points under each category. If you can't tick each of those and demonstrate that you can do those 4 things, then don't go for that category because there will be people that can and you're going to be fighting at least. Move on to one that you can. So, do you have what they're asking for? Often with award applications, there are restrictions on word limits, graphics, attachments, images. They might say you can, they might say you can't. You might have a very strict word limit in that there's 5 or 6 questions and you've got to write 50 words, 100 words, 500 words. Make sure you read the instructions because nothing more frustrating than getting chucked out because you haven't written enough or you've written too much. Deadlines. This one's easy for this. Obviously they're going to change for every award, but this we opened on the 1st of March and these close on the 25th of May. So between now and then there's plenty of time to go away, gather the information, do your research. So by the time you get to 25th of May, you've got a really good award application. Don't do what most people do and think 25th of May. Not my problem at the moment. I'll worry about that on the 24th because what happens is the customers you want to talk to, the staff you want to talk to, the stories that you want to gather, people might be on annual leave around the 25th of May and you want to talk to those people now. I've done it before in my business. Award applications are often seen as not a priority. They're not client work, I'm not being paid to do them, and therefore they can wait at the bottom of the to-do list. And if I have time, I will put an application together. See this as a really good investment of your time. They are a very good way of gaining PR, exposure. They're an external stamp on your business. All these accreditations you can pay an absolute fortune to have and put on the bottom of your email sign off. None of them is as powerful as being shortlisted for an award. So take the sort of deadline seriously and don't leave it. We do the same with bids. Don't leave it to the last week because it will be frustrating. You won't put together as strong an application perhaps you'd like to. The format, so awards can be different. It can be fill a Word document and email it back. There can be portals on websites where you have to log in, you have to keep your login details because the number of times you have to renew your password because you keep forgetting what that was. Just check what the format is for your submission, because also if you put a beautiful Word document together with images and links and then you go to submit it and it's a portal and you have to copy and paste each answer into a box, no images, no links, you've just wasted all that time putting something together that you can't actually send in. So just understand now what the format is. Eligibility. So we went through all those categories, and one thing that people often fail on with awards is they're not eligible for that category. So we talked about the size of business. You might have a new business category or the apprenticeship or the trainee issue. So just check what makes you eligible for that awards. I mean, there are actually awards where you can't enter unless you're a member. Like with the chamber, there's awards where you can't enter unless you're a new business. So just make sure you don't go down a rabbit hole, waste a lot of time and then realise actually you're going to get failed because you're not even relevant to, and they're usually quite clear. So if you're a new business, they'll say has to have formed since January 2015 or something like that. So they'll make it really clear as to what to be eligible. Incomplete forms are not judged. They certainly don't win. So if you put a half-hearted application in on the basis, oh, well, it's better than nothing, is the judge going to bother to read it? Probably not. And they're certainly not going to win. So commit to it and go for everything. And if you can't answer all the questions, now is the time to work out who in your business or perhaps your customers you need to be asking those questions of, and farm it out. Use your staff, use your contacts, use your customers to help you do the legwork. So actually you've got too much content. And at the end you're trying to work out the best bits to get to rather than we've got 500 words to write, I've written 50, I'm just going to garble for 450 just to fill the space. We've all done it. Protection of confidential information. So some of these awards are going to be asking for numbers, stats, figures. It might be stuff around your technology. It could be around your customers, testimonials. Just be aware of what you're putting in your application. And make sure that you're not exposing yourself and putting anything in there that potentially is confidential, that you're responsible for someone else. So data protection coming in, just be aware of what you're putting out there and what that contains. So just one to watch out for. And award specific restrictions. So again, we've been through that with the categories, just to make sure that you're not wasting your time. So assigning responsibility to write. As I said, this is an investment of time, so treat it like any other project in your business. Work out who is the best placed person to answer each part of it. Think about the skills in your business. Your marketing team will be useful here, but it might be that the directors are pushing for the awards, not marketing. It can happen that way around. So just think about who's in the business, what sort of award you're going for, and who you need to be talking to. If you're going for the Apprentice Award, or the Employer of the Year, HR need to be involved. They'll want to know what's going on and what we're promoting. If you're going for finance, get your financial team involved. It might have an external accountant. You might need to wait a bit longer to get numbers off your accountant. So just work out your responsibility of who's going to write it. And gathering evidence. We're going to go into this now, structuring the response. So gathering evidence against requirements. So this is all about planning, and this may sound, it's just an award application, it's a little bit overkill, but if you can get a plan together of what you want to write and what evidence you want to write, almost like a wish list of, okay, we're going to go for customer service excellence. These are the things we need: 4 testimonials from customers. We want some KPIs on customer satisfaction. some interaction on social media, start doing that now and gathering it into a file. Just dump it into a file in your server, so when you come to write it, you've got all that to work from. It does make life a lot easier. Okay, structuring response to avoid writer's block. We've all had writer's block. You open the Word document or the portal and it says 500 words, and all you can focus on is I've got to write 500 words. And actually when you start to break down what you've got to write about to meet the criteria, and you put a little paragraph under each of those, before you know it, you've written 500 words and you're actually frustrated there's not more space. So never worry about a word count. Just write what you want to write and then edit it down. It's easier to do it that way than trying to confine what you're doing. So use the subheadings. So those bullet points we talked about earlier, especially for Northampton Chamber Awards, those 4 bullet points are your subheadings, because then you want to make this as easy as possible for the judges. So when they look at your application, if they see the 4 things they've got on their list, there's 4 subheadings, and you've written your response under them, they're almost automatically going to, in their head, this is going to be a really good application. Even if you've written complete garbage under each heading, they are going to think this is on point, this is relevant. Don't write garbage underneath, but you get my point. So those subheadings, you might have subheadings, but make sure those are really clear. This is our response and this is how we've met your criteria. Avoid modest or defraying language. We were talking about this just before everyone else came in the room. It is actually quite difficult sometimes to write an award application for yourself, because humans generally, I know there are some exceptions, are quite modest people when it comes to our own achievements. We tend to play things down, we don't like to brag and be over the top. We tend to go on the side of caution. An award application is not a time to be modest. You need to shout from the rooftops about what you've achieved. You need to think of it from the outside world. What you've done may seem normal to you, it's just your everyday job, it's just what you come into work to do. But to other people, what you do is probably quite exceptional. So just remember not to be modest about what you've achieved. Defraying language. So defraying language is something we should always avoid in any sort of, it's sort of non-committal. It sort of suggests that it was great, but, or we should have done, may, might. It's those sort of words that put a little bit of doubt in the mind of the reader. So avoid any language which sort of hints that it's brilliant, but we could have done better. Oh, it's brilliant, but we should have done this. If we had done this, it might have been a different outcome. Anything like that where there's kind of an alternative to your positive, get rid of it. Don't let anyone in legal get hold of your award application, because they always like to make things sound not too committed, because it gets them out of all sorts of loopholes. So be positive, commit to it, and make sure that you are thinking of this as a selling opportunity. It's a story. And that's probably one of the main things I want to get across today, is that your award application, the quickest way to engage a judge is to tell a story. It needs a beginning, it needs a middle and an end. We've all probably been in a pub with someone telling a story, and you are sat there listening to them, and you lose your train of thought. They've lost their train of thought because they've not really thought through the story they're telling. They're sort of waffling, they're not getting to the point. You've got no idea why the story started in the first place. And you just lose your audience straight away. So the point of this is make sure you're being really clear about what your story is. If it's Employer of the Year, give them a story. How have you got to this point? How have you grown? How have you invested in your staff? And what impact has that had on them? So people can buy into this story of what you've achieved. You're taking them on a journey. And I think that's, again, in an award, it's very easy to think of it as a fact-finding mission. Give them facts, bamboozle them with facts, stats, numbers, bullet points of just statements perhaps you do use in marketing or sales. Make this a little bit more personable. When you walk up onto that stage to be given the award, they might give you a little snapshot, the audience. So-and-so has won this award because, and they'll want to give your story. And if they have to say they won this award because of, and then list a load of facts, the audience aren't going to go, oh, that's a nice reason for them to win. So make sure you've got that compassion in there that people can relate to. Avoid copy and paste generic marketing. This is often dangerous when you're asked for an introduction to your business. So you go on the website, you go to the About Us page, you copy the first 5 lines and you paste it in the top of the award application, done. Next. That's not what they're looking for. If you're going for the Customer Service Excellence Awards, this introduction to your business needs to be around customer service excellence. If it's the Technology Award, this introduction needs to be about technology. So try and avoid anything generic, copy and paste. They'll go on your website as part of your application. They'll go and look at the website anyway. You don't need to move that into the application. This is your time to make this relevant to this award. So I said earlier about bullet points and facts, but some of us are not natural writers, and the thought of making something sound like it flows and it's together and there's an element of story to it, it scares us when we have to try and make that all link together. And a lot of our brains are much better at creating lists. So if you can tell a story, but that story is in bullet points, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as there's a flow to those bullet points and there's a point to them, rather than just random facts fired at the reader. So if the thought of writing 500 words in a flowing, beautiful prose that you could go and publish scares you, then don't do it. Leave it at bullet points, because actually, if your writing works in bullet points, it will work for the reader as well, and they'll be able to follow what you're doing. If you try and flower it up and add joining words and make it sound nice, you probably are going to lose the reader, because it's not naturally how you're going to come across. Why are we going for this award? I think we can sometimes get caught up in awards because we should be going for this. But why is it you're going for it? Are you looking for internal recognition? Are you trying to reward your staff for what they've done by going for an award? Are you trying to create marketing and PR opportunities? Are you doing it to be seen in your industry as someone that is credible? Are you doing it to demonstrate to your customers that what you do is leading? So just think about why you're doing it, because that will help you give the spin on the story that you want to tell. What have you done to deserve this? And that's always an interesting one, because sometimes we get caught up in we've got to go for an award, and then you think, what have we actually done to deserve this? And most of us have probably got things we do on a daily basis that we forget is exceptional. And so by talking to your team and talking it through with others, what about that project we did last year where we raised £1,000 for Will and Hospice or a local charity, or we went off on a corporate team building day and what result that had? You know, think of the things that you may have done as an everyday thing that actually deserves recognition. And it could be individuals in your business that think their team need recognition for something, and they might be able to bring that forward to you. What are the key points we need to get across and to demonstrate this? So again, Employer of the Year, you need to get across points about your staff and your team. This is not about how well the business is done and how high your turnover is and how high your growth is. That doesn't make you an Employer of the Year. How your staff feel about you and your retention rates and how many staff you employ who have been with your company for more than 10 years, they are things that make you an Employer of the Year. So think about it from a different perspective. There's a human element to Employer of the Year. Small Business of the Year, you can still have those things in there, but you're probably also going to have some more of the non-personal things, the financials, the growth numbers. So that's all of that is before you've even started writing. That's your plan, is getting the structure, getting all the content in place. So this final part of the presentation is ideas for wow content. So you've done now the talking to the staff, the talking to your customers. You've got an idea as to what category you're going to go for, why you're going for it, you're eligible for it, and the story that you want to tell. The next problem is making your story stand out to someone external from your business. We've just done the SME Bucks Awards, and you are given 4 questions of about 500 words, and the questions are really normal questions. They don't encourage you to go to town on evidence. They just say, what have you done in the last 12 months that warrants this award? And you're left high and dry, wondering what you should put in there. So this is a few things. Stories, examples, scenarios that bring the business to life. So if you think case studies, client testimonials, anything like that, you can show the points you're trying to get across in real life, an actual scenario. Bob has been with the business for 20 years. He has progressed from this to this. He's now a senior executive, and his initiative he's brought in has changed all the other juniors' lives in the training in the business. You know, something like that where you can bring a human element to it, but it's an actual scenario that's actually played out in the business rather than a dreamt up by the senior management team. Hard evidence and statistics. Judges love statistics. Don't make them up, but they do like percentages. We have grown X percent. We have a customer retention rate of X percent. We have a staff retention rate of X percent. Our growth is X percent. Those sort of things you can also make sound better than we've grown from £100,000 to £150,000. Do that in a percentage, sounds pretty impressive. So think of numbers you can come up with. Now, your business might not be very good at measuring in numbers, but if you go onto your social media on your website, you could say from your website statistics, your customer engagement has gone up by 200% in the last 12 months. You might not measure that as a business, but those numbers will be there. So just think, what do you use in the business and what can you start creating statistics out of? It could be your CRM system. Your CRM system a year ago only had 100 contacts on it. It now has 200 contacts which you've had contact with in the last 2 months. So 90% of your CRM system you have spoken to in the last 2 months. Again, it's just impressive stats, probably not stuff we'd measure though. But for an award, it just shows relevancy, just shows that you've got your finger on the pulse. Customer testimonials, show of hands, how many of you actually actively gather customer testimonials, feedback? How many of you would think to put those into an award application? Good, okay. You might need to take out the name of that customer. They might not be happy with you putting their name in, but there's no reason why you can't put in the statement, because what other people say about you is so much more powerful than what you say about yourself. Because you can say anything about yourself, no one's going to check, but if someone else has said it, there's almost an external accreditation there in its own right. So think about those customer testimonials when you're putting them on Facebook and you're encouraging them on Google. When you're doing your awards, go on there and just grab little snippets. It might not be you put the whole testimonial, but just a couple of words that customers use to describe us, and pull those out. Because customers will often come up with words to describe that you wouldn't think of yourself, and they sometimes surprise you. Obviously positive words. We don't want to put anything in there. This again is sort of flipping on its head. If we're going for wow content and things that set it apart, what difference has your success made to others? So again, in an award, you can't sometimes get caught in saying all the good things about the business and what it's done, not relating it to what difference you've actually made to other people. So what difference has your investment in technology made to your customers? What difference has being a small business made to your community? Do you employ local people? Do you do local events? Do you support a local charity, a local football team? Do you sponsor other businesses and organisations in the area? Partners. It might be that you use a lot of local subcontractors and you therefore are supporting the local business community. That's quite powerful, rather than what your success is and how this has made you good at what you do. Your employees. The fact that your business is growing means you can invest in them more, you give them a more stable job security, you give them more training, more opportunity for progression. So don't think of this as an award application for your business. Think about all the other things you've touched on, because if you can bring all of those elements into an application and you leave the judge thinking, wow, this business is making a difference, that's what's going to win you an award. And it's making a difference beyond your own boundary. Because if you're just doing this for yourself and you're just interested in how much money you're making and how much you're growing and not the impact you're having on all those other things that touch your business, you're going to come across as the world now works on everyone working together, supporting each other, promoting each other and building that community. So get across the difference that you're making. Yes, so pack a punch. It's very easy to get lost in the thread if you've got 500 words and you're so busy trying to get everything in. Go back to the start. The first thing they're going to read is that opening line. You want to make sure that gets across the point you're trying to make. So why is it you're going for this award, and summarise it in one sentence and put it right at the start, because that sets the scene then. the judges are on board, they get why you're here, they get what you're doing, they get what you're about, and then go on to tell your story. So see it as almost an exec summary, but in one line. And that's a really effective way of reading an award application as from a judge's perspective, is we are looking for someone to just go, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm about, and then go on to explain that as a story. It's just a nice way of getting them to engage right from the start. They sort of sit up and go, these guys are here to make a difference. This one we talked about before we started. Check these stories and news items and achievements you're stating in your application. Before you submit your application, just check your website and your social media that there is actually some sort of continuity with what you're going on about in an award application and what's actually out there. Because if you put in your award application, you've done all these incredible things, CSR, you've done these away days with your staff, there's all these achievements, and none of it's on your social media and none of it's on the news on your website. As a judge, you're going to start thinking, well, how much of this have they made up to sound good? I'm not saying go back and create a load of fabricated news items, but just make sure what you're saying is the truth. And we talked about this earlier before everyone came in that think of it as a job application. So when you put your CV in, and for 2 years you were an assistant in an office and basically you photocopied, made tea and stapled, you are not going to put that in your CV. You are going to put that you are an integral member of the team, providing administration support to the rest of the function. You're not going to say photocopying, stapling and making tea. So it's the same. You don't lie, but sometimes you need to say things in a way that puts a positive spin on them without actually fabricating stuff. And I have seen plenty of award applications where you read and then you look at the business, the website or the social media, and the two, they just don't add up. And the credibility is lost at that point, and the judges will feel that. So just make sure what you're putting in your award application is credible. You might be interviewed as part of your award application. They will sit you down and they will go through your application. They'll ask you questions about what you've done and what you've achieved. You want to be able to sit there and feel confident that what you've put in there is the God's honest truth, and that you've just put a very good positive spin on it rather than just making up stuff. You've invested £100,000 in the last year in training and development. If you've done it, brilliant. If you haven't, just think about what you're saying. Because the quickest way to lose an award is to not be credible. And that can actually do more damage than good. No one else is going to know you went for it, but internally, if you go for an award and you don't win it, it's quite damaging to your team because you build them up in this process, you're asking them, they get involved, they're buying into the process, and then you don't put a credible application in, you don't win the award, and it can have a really big impact on the morale of your team. So just make sure you're going into this with the right intentions. So that's our whistle-stop tour of writing an awards winning application, and so thank you for listening.